Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we've got another video from good old Nowl, who has been making some absolute banger content recently when it comes to Wuthering Waves. And the topic for today is going to be about how Wuthering Waves outsold the hype, how it is a game that actually lived up to expectations while others have failed. I don't know what good ume means. Is he talking about the horse game? Who knows? We'll go ahead, we'll get right on into it. Nowl's kind of known for his weird titles, but the videos are really, really good.
In the past couple of years, Gacha Games have become one of the biggest market in the gaming industry. Not only the content is scalable and modular, but the game can also easily be made or marked as free-to-play title, so the developer can reach a larger audience. And let's be real, the biggest reason why this is so popular, especially among game developers, is because they make a huge chunk of money. Genshin, Star Rail, Fate, Arknights, Wuthering Waves, you name it. Tens of millions of dollars every month. While it sounds so appealing, which kind of make me want to make my own game so I can afford my first yacht.
There's been enough EOSs in recent years regarding a lot of gacha games that, we're thinking about the hype. Think about your tried 9 months of service. A game that had all of the backing, all of the resources, all the marketing, right? All of the developers required to actually make it a success. And then it literally only lasted 9 months before permanently shutting down. There's a lot that goes into the success, word of mouth, all of that people don't think about, and they can end up losing a lot more money than they end up bringing in.
It's not that easy. Many games out there have tried to be part of this gold mine and tried to
not pre-watched, by the way,
become one of the giant of the genre, but reality says different. This clearly shows it's not easy to survive in an era where new games keep coming with better graphics, better gacha, better lore and stuff. And we know this is not only a problem for newer games, but also for games that already exist right now.
And I think one of the big things that people should probably start talking about a lot more is the fact that gacha right now feels kind of bad. I feel like there's been a massive degeneration of the big Hoyo titles, and the only things that majority of people are looking for is like new updates to Wuthering Waves alongside the new games that are coming out. Legitimately, the amount of damage it feels like that's happened to titles like ZZZ, titles like Honkai Star Rail, titles like Genshin Impact over the past 6 or 7 months has been absolutely insane. I feel like there's just so much lost faith. There's just so much undersold expectations. There's been so much disappointment in regards to what's happened in 2025. People are like desperately looking on the horizon. That's why reactions to all of like the new stuff that's coming out, think like your Silver Palaces, think like your Anantas, I guess a little bit of NTE as well. The rewinding cadence. Those videos end up doing super well because people are literally looking for the next best thing, because what we're experiencing right now in the present is legitimately bad.
Like it or hate it, it also applies to Genshin, Wuthering Waves, or other big title. But for some reason, Wuthering Waves managed to make things make sense for them and took them to the safe zone. So what exactly did they do better? Well,
it's super fair to say that Wuthering Waves is the game that all of these new gachas are modeling themselves around now. It has the systems, it has the progression, it has like the graphical fidelity that is influencing all of the new developers, all of the new titles to follow into its footsteps. All you have to do is take a look at all of the updates that NTE made to its second closed beta test, which, was heavily featured around pretty much lifting a majority of the systems that are in Wuthering Waves to make NTE better compared to his first closed beta test. A lot of people have been saying NTE just feels like Wuwa with a different setting and also worse at the same time. That's what I've been able to discern from the initial feedback that CBT2 people, or I guess the most recent CBT, I don't know if it's the second or the third, that's the take that they've had about NTE. It feels like a ZZZ version of Wuwa, and then it's not as good systems wise.
I'd say there's few things that actually matters in this. UME, uniqueness, market, and experience. Unique selling point. What do you offer and
That's what it stands for.
what your
So it's not Ume Musume.
competitors don't or can't? Do you remember back then? Every new gacha game, especially one with the open world anime style, will carry the title of Genshin Killer, which can result in a good or bad ending. I mean, it's obvious the developer would like to get the same success as Genshin Impact. I don't know if the developer just playing safe, but oftentimes the new titles somehow designed to replicate or go on a similar way as Genshin. Elements of reaction, exploration, combat, and stuff. But the downside of this trend is the devastating comparison. People always expect and set the bar for other games to be like that. If it's as good, it's copying. If it's similar but a little bit different, it's bad. While
I think Tower of Fantasy kind of did some irreparable damage to this whole idea of there being a Genshin Killer label. Because, good God, that game kind of fucked it all up. I think Tower of Fantasy kind of raised expectations so high for what a competitor to Genshin Impact was going to look like. Tower of Fantasy was one of the biggest marketing moves for Genshin Impact. That's my take. You had this guy, Tower TOF, come in after Genshin Impact released. Everyone assumes that it's going to be better to some degree because it came out later, you know, stuff like that, right? It's just you expect the newer stuff to be better. And they completely fell flat. And I think it almost gave Hoyo like this air of superiority where it's like, yeah, the product that we made is like so good and like so complex and like so well built that like, yeah, nobody can really match up to the quality that we've been producing. We're actually doing like a really good job, guys. We're working really hard. And then they're actually putting in like bare minimum effort to progress the game and actually make it better. And I think that has sort of given these Genshin Killers or these, you know, similar games in the open world the idea that like, oh, Genshin has already done so much and the game is so good that like other people won't be able to live up to it. When in reality, there are so many other games coming out that look so much better than Genshin. It's ridiculous. And then all Genshin has done is just stagnated this entire time. Let me just show you one example.
Children, stay back!
They're coming!
Run! Help!
That's a cutscene. That's a cutscene in Genshin Impact 5.7, the most recent update, by the way. This was released in the big 2025. That's what the game's been doing. That's 5 years of progress right there.
in Wuthering Waves' case, I think they kind of went on a different route. They're selling their uniqueness as an open world gacha game. Instead of setting the image on the same page as others, they take it to a whole new different page, but with more detail. As a game that mainly revolves around combat, instead of hiding behind a pure shielder meta gimmick, they introduce perfect dodge and parry mechanism. Sure, it's not a new thing in gaming, but for an anime gacha game, it's a real breath of fresh air. And a lot of you have confirmed that you got into Wuthering Waves because the combat feels more appealing?
The combat feels the most fluid and it feels the most intuitive. Getting feedback for a dodge feels good. Getting a bonus for a dodge feels good. Having big hits that are telegraphed, but then also something that you can prevent feels good. Where it's like, oh, you get hit by them. It's like, okay, I know I fucked up here. It's a feedback system that's well built, lets the player know what they're doing wrong immediately, and there are never any questions about how they can approach this encounter and do it better the next time. I don't think that there's any situation where a player like goes against a boss in Wuwa and they're like, damn, there was nothing I could have done against that. Or it was like, damn, I don't know how I can approach this fight better. It's pretty clear in every single way what you're supposed to do. And we have our premier ZZZ defender over here saying, like ZZZ bosses, you play the boss, not just attack. No, ZZZ is what has one of the most unintuitive combat systems in the genre. I parry by switching characters. That's retarded. And the devs know it's retarded as well. That's why they started adding a parry into every character's kit at a baseline. My actual take when it comes to this, before we got interrupted by the whole ZZZ thing, is that Wuwa systems, its feedback, all of that, it's so inherently well designed. That's why pretty much every other game is copying it. That's why Rewinding Cadence has a similar system. That's why NTE has a similar system. And that's probably why Ananta will come out and it'll likely have a similar system. I wouldn't be surprised at all if Azure Premilia also had a similar system. It's just one that's like the modern thing. It's like first-person shooters having easy ways for you to heal in the game. Are there any FPSs that come out nowadays where healing isn't like something that's super accessible and super easy for a player to gain access to? No, there's not.
While the game still has few different elements, it doesn't strictly determine which one is stronger against which enemy. There's no elemental reaction like in other games. You won't get explosion by combining Calculator with Lupa or melt reaction when pairing Carlotta with Brand. But instead, they introduce something new, intro and outro skill, which open up even more possibilities for team composition. Other thing that is not related to combat but still unique is the fact that they quickly adapt to what the community will enjoy. And I think it is an important aspect for their uniqueness. They took what's good and improve it. For example, other gacha games offer a fishing event once in a while, right?
Taking what's good and not changing it too much, and then taking what's bad and then improving it is what's a very consistent thing about Wuthering Waves. You would hope that the people that are like lifting the systems from Wuwa would be able to go ahead and take the Wuwa systems and then make them better. That's not really something that is occurring very often. It looks like the systems are straight up lifted to a degree. I think that's where innovation and stuff is coming in. I'm hoping that there's a game that comes out that innovates on Wuwa systems further, that makes them even better, that finds a way to make the combat, to make all the dynamics feel more unique and more fleshed out. But I feel like it's going to be really hard because right now there are so many people scrambling, and I think the impetus or really the motivation in the past was Genshin's combat legitimately feeling awful. And that's kind of like the comparison, is something needs to feel bad in the first place to actually progress and move forward. But I don't think there's a lot of people generally giving negative feedback about the Wuthering Waves combat loop.
People just do it for rewards. Like they do it as soon as possible, as fast as possible, and never come back. But Wuthering Waves make fishing event as one of the most enjoyable experience in game, at least for me. How many of you guys have spent hours playing the fishing event? I bet a lot.
I actually don't like this event, but I can recognize why people might. It's a very chill, relaxed sort of thing, but I'm here to hit sick parries and go blow up bosses, not click my spacebar at timed intervals.
I was really drawn into it and forgot about the whole point of this event. And at the end of the day, open world games are all about exploration and the freedom you get in game.
Very similarly too, right? I would love like an RTS strategy game, MOBA style game mode, right, in Wuwa, where I like control resonators, go around, and then like level up and do shit like that. That would be a fun mini game for me to play in this game, but that wouldn't appeal to a lot of people. Different people are allowed to have different tastes. I think the main sort of takeaway over here is that when it comes to appealing to different tastes or like appealing to a certain genre of gaming, Kuro goes all out with the implementation. This event right here, I hope it's talked about in the video. Peaks of Prestige is literally one of the best card games I've ever played. Card game / auto battle simulator. It is literally one of the best. And the only reason why I'm not playing it more is because this feels like a beta test, which functionally I think it is. If Kuro does not expand on this moving forward and flesh it out more in the future, this will be one of the biggest misses in like the history of gaming. It is so good. And all they need to do is just add more cards, add more keywords, add more dynamics, and then move forward from there. That's it. And like PvP and like a ranking system, right? And stuff like that. And obviously more balancing so that people aren't winning in one turn. That's what they need to do for this, because when it comes to creating like those alternative game modes, right, it's actually solid. It's actually good stuff. It's actually not bad. That's how it's been every single time they end up innovating.
When Wuthering Waves introduced wall running, it really caught my attention because I'm so tired of slowly climbing walls while draining stamina. But
why he caked up like that though?
Anyways, falling, and on top of that, they
what the fuck was that? Is this guy is gay for Spider-Man?
And added a flying mechanism. Seal the deal. And hey, call me glazing, but you can clearly see how this influenced the trend for other games. Well, not exactly setting a trend, but the fact that other games are starting to implement similar feature is a good sign for the genre. Take a look at NTE. They've adopted a perfect dodge mechanism combat and a similar wall running system. This is a good sign, we're not sticking to the classic way.
My critique for NTE and its lifting of WoW systems is that they almost all look exactly the same. NTE has perfect dodges, bonuses, like extra damage attacks after dodging, the same exact parry system. They have the concerto system and then intro skills. I get inspiration, but I feel like inspiration is the right term to use when it's similar to a system, but different. This is a one-to-one.
Users' behavior and demand. As a game is still a business model, profit will always be the main goal. And in the case of gacha games, the gacha system itself is what drives that profit. Many games out there ended up getting labeled as predatory for designing their system to make money as quickly and aggressively as possible. I mean, yes, all games are technically labeled free to play, but they're not free to keep gambling. Real money is still involved. We cannot really blame the developer for wanting to earn from their product. After all, they're not running a charity. But sometimes, they get a little too gacha greedy, trying to hide the aggressive monetization behind the shiny free label.
Who cares about your existing players if you know you got whales that are going to spend tens of thousands of dollars every patch? Who cares about the existing players when you got enough whales to sustain you? Why not power creep every single update? Why not make half the characters on the roster actually useless? They'll spend money anyways.
I actually got into a silly argument with my friend about this, but I will say it again. While Wuthering Waves does involve money like any other gacha games, it still offers a surprisingly fair and satisfying experience for F2P players. I mean, not everyone can spend hundreds of dollars, but they still want to play the games without having to feel left behind. We want a game that will not lock our full experience behind a paywall, and I'd say Wuthering Waves deliver. When most games stick to classic 50-50 pity system that feels more like a coin toss with your credit card.
This is my take on 50-50s. A lot of people are looking at games removing their 50-50 system as like the most generous thing ever in like the history of gaming. I think something that a lot of people have to recognize when it comes to the 50-50, if something appears better in this game, you still have to see if there was a cost for it becoming better. For example, in NTE, the 50-50 system is removed. However, does that also mean that there's going to be less overall pulls given every single patch? And when it's in its closed beta test and you don't see what version 1.1 of the game is going to give, I don't think you can answer that question. I think version 1.1 and the actual income that you get every single patch is going to determine how generous the game actually even is. If there's no 50-50, but you don't get enough pulls in a patch to guarantee a character, then what's the point? Is it going to matter at all? And the answer is probably not. And the thing is, you can make that same argument for Wuthering Waves as well, where people say, oh, Wuwa's weapon banner being guaranteed doesn't actually matter that much because the 4 stars in the game are so bad. But you also have a 5-star selectable weapon banner. And so you're essentially, if you've been a day 1 player to now, you've actually been able to pull a copy of every single standard 5-star weapon. So you at a baseline should actually have something usable. Assuming that you spent your standard pulls on the weapon banner, you should have a usable weapon for every single class. And so that's something that's in the game as well. You have to look at where all of these different systems are actually linked together to be able to make a final conclusion. And that's why I'm never really that bought into just looking at one part of the game and how it's better. Because usually there is a catch.
Wuwa flipped the script by giving players what they really want. For example, they give us 4 banners running at once, but only one, the limited character banner that follows the 50-50 format. The standard weapon banner, guaranteed. Plus, you get to choose the weapon that you want, no more playing slots with the sword. The standard character banner, also guaranteed. Even the limited 5-star weapon banner is also guaranteed. People are not just rolling, they're smiling. Kuro somehow brought an experience that can balance the gacha and the gameplay, also the earning and the experience.
And I think one thing that a lot of people don't factor in is that they've turned winning the 50-50 into like an actually very, very, very nice event for a lot of players. If you're looking to guarantee a unit in Wuthering Waves, one thing that you're almost like expected to do is go on in and have like 160 pulls ready for the unit, right? because you're supposed to make sure that that if you lose your 50-50, if you really want the unit, you have enough pulls to win afterwards. On the off chance that you win the 50-50, then you can decide, oh, I won, and now I have like these 70-80 pulls left over. Maybe I should go ahead and now just get the weapon, and the weapon is guaranteed. There's no way for me to lose here. And so, for a lot of players, winning the 50-50 basically translates into getting the character and their weapon instead of just the character. And that's why there's a lot of free-to-play people with a character signature. That's why there's a lot of low spenders that have the character signature. It's because of how that system works in the game.
But still, the market isn't just about F2P. The whales out there should also feel special for spending their cash on the game, right? So what does WoW do? They allow player to guarantee any active limited character by exchanging currency in shop. I mean, most gacha games only let you exchange for standard 5-star character or 4-star character, or simply just another pull that doesn't even guarantee anything.
I feel like one thing that's just amazing about the design of the Coral Shop is the fact that WoW doesn't have weapons in here like the Hoyo games. You can just legitimately, in Hoyo games, never get a standard weapon. Straight up. I think there are people that have played multiple years on Genshin Impact and then not gotten like some of like the really good standard weapons on like Genshin Impact's banner or on HSR's banner. Because the only way to get them is to like lose on the weapon banner, which you're probably never going to pull on in a lot of those games, or just randomly get them in a shared pool with the 5 stars on the standard banner. It's like, I think there's that one Atlas, right? Like that one Catalyst in Genshin Impact that gives crit rate. Don't have it. But I got 7 copies of Aquila Favonius. I've got 7 copies of like some fucking dog shit anus bow. But I don't have, like, the Skyward Atlas, the actual good weapon that's on the banner. Even if WoW does have standard weapons that don't perform at the same level as other ones, like, for example, this bad boy over here, Cosmic Nipples, this thing sucks balls. This thing's kind of bad. Abyss Surges? Okay, this thing is arguably worse. This is the worst. This is probably the worst standard weapon in the game, if we're frankly being honest. This thing is dog shit. It has like no users. It's complete ass. I have to consciously decide to pull this weapon. I can go through my entire lifetime as a Wuthering Waves player, and I can guarantee that I never get a copy of this weapon. I can guarantee that I can never lose a 50-50, get it by RNG, feel like shit because I pulled something that I think is trash. I can consciously decide that I will never, ever get a copy of this. And I've decided that for both of these. I've decided that for these 3 weapons. I don't have a copy of either of these. And having that level of freedom, being able to choose as a player like this, is one of the biggest benefits that I feel like a lot of people, when they're critiquing the bad 4 stars, don't necessarily talk about, because everyone gets the standard pulls. And I think your goal as a player should be to, if you're looking to save as much money as possible, right, or stretch the resources when it comes to these weapon pulls, it's just like get 1 copy of each of these. And the last part that I think I didn't even mention before is, y'all know how you can do this. Every single update, you get 7 of these. Doesn't that guarantee that after a certain period of time, aka 10 patches, when you've gotten 70 of these in rebate across 10 patches, that's essentially, even for free-to-play players, that's a free weapon. I don't think a lot of people recognize that. If you're a long-time player, if you're like a dedicated one that is there every single update for one of these, you can guarantee a 5-star weapon every 10 patches without literally spending anything, because you're able to get both of these from the rebate store. People might laugh and say, oh, it's 1 year for 1 weapon. This is just not even counting in the actual pull income of the patch. So you can always decide to make it faster too. I bet there are a lot of people that will be at like 40 of these from collecting them and then getting them for free. They'll be at like 40 or 50 and they'll just be like, ah, fuck it. I'll just spend the 10, 20 additional pulls and just like, you know, take a shortcut right now. And that's going to be an option for a lot of people too when it comes to weapons. So yeah, it's one of the most, I'm gonna be honest, player-friendly systems. If a gacha can be player-friendly, it's one of the most player-friendly ones we have.
But still, let's be real. While this feature is technically available for F2P player too, only whales can realistically afford to spin like crazy and make full use of this feature.
I would say no. There are a lot of free-to-play players that simply save up their pulls, because this is the translation that's happening in the Coral Shop. For the price of 360 Coral, I can get 45 pulls or a dupe. And the thing is, it's 90 pulls for 2 dupes. You will almost never get 2 copies of a character for 90 pulls. You can definitely get 2 copies of a character in 90, but it's going to be a very, very low chance, especially with the 50-50 factored in. So it's kind of just, if you are one of those free-to-plays that for some godforsaken reason wants to like S6 a unit, I know there are a lot of people that save for like years to go S6 one unit. It's even faster to do that as well if you're doing something that goofy.
Happy customers stay longer and bring others. At the end of the day, games are all about happiness, joy, satisfaction, and experience. In the gacha scene, I think one of the key reasons players stays, beyond the gameplay itself, is how the developer treats them. How they respond when there's a problem, how they fix it, how communication flows between players and the developers. It sounds simple, but trust me, it matters. I think most of you already know some developer asks for a feedback on how to improve the gaming experience, but never really apply it to the game.
You guys remember that Genshin survey that they had on their website where they talked about, isn't it really annoying how the boss mats are randomized in the weekly bosses? Isn't it annoying that you can't grind talent materials every single day of the week? They had that survey like 4 or 5 months ago. Maybe 3 to 4 months ago, and then they did literally nothing with it. They know that people don't like it. They know exactly what the issues are. They straight up, clearly, explicitly outlined what's wrong with Genshin Impact, and then they did nothing. You didn't even have to type anything. There was no need for like a custom response because they hit it right on the fucking head what was wrong with the game. Nothing, bro.
But instead, they implemented in a different title entirely. Yeah, that happens.
Oh, yeah, I guess sure. They did it in Honkai Star Rail and ZZZ instead. Yeah, just go fuck yourself.
But that doesn't matter here, because at least Wuthering Waves does things right. They communicate with their players, whether the situation is good or bad. They respond quickly to the issues and try to resolve them as fast as possible. Well, prove me wrong, but the ecosystem was too grindy, they adjusted. A character had a bug, they fixed it.
They've added so many improvements to the ecosystem at this point. I'm just kind of like, brother, at this point, you're just complaining about the RNG and the gear. The acquisition, the streamlining, the smoothing out, all of that. There can't be that many complaints about echoes when you don't even need top tier echoes to clear the content in the game. At this point, we're complaining that we're not getting like cosmetic numbers. We're not getting like cosmetic changes in our echoes faster when we don't literally need them to clear any of the content. It's just like, yes, that's one of the main things to grind for in this game, but it's literally not necessary. This isn't your Genshin Impact. This isn't your Honkai Star Rail where you need a perfect 10 out of 10 build to be able to clear. This is Wuthering Waves where you can go in with bum-ass 4-star weapons, a 70, like a fucking 60, 230 crit ratio, and just go clear content. And if you're asking me for proof, I literally have a video of myself doing that with a Gion on a fucking 4-star weapon and like that same exact crit rate.
Look too flat, they changed it. A character design was nerfed too hard, they redesigned it. Well, not everyone playing the game actually cares about this thing, but active players definitely do. Another reason Wuthering Waves has gained many loyal fans lately is because how transparent the developer have been about the game. When the game is underperformed at launch, they addressed it. When the anniversary rewards did not satisfy players, they explained what actually happened and even gave up more. They understand.
Honestly, I don't even care about the anniversary rewards anymore. I don't think anyone can. After they saw ZZZ 2.0, I don't think anybody in WoWa has ever talked about the anniversary rewards ever since. Let's be honest here. Yeah, ZZZ players got a free standard 5-star, and now the game is in the worst spot it's ever been. I think the ZZZ devs, they knew how bad 2.0 was, and they're just like, fuck it, we gotta give them a free 5. We gotta give them 2 free 5-stars. This patch sucks. This patch is bad. We gotta give them 2 free 5-stars so they don't quit. And then also make sure, give them a 10 pull next patch as well.
Then this simple truth. Being open with player builds trust, and trust equals retention. Retention equals loyalty, and loyalty equals curiosity. WoWa keeps player wanting more, not just for new banners, but for what's coming next. And lately they've done well on that front too by releasing the character roadmap for future regions. So I think I'm certain that while there's a lot of new gacha title coming with new feature, new stuff, WoWa can clearly survive in this environment as
for a company to be able to sort of like steal the thunder that I think WoWa has been building up, they're gonna have to succeed in a lot of different ways. They're gonna need to have a really polished game at a baseline, and then whenever there's an issue that's actually pointed out by their player base, they're gonna have to go ahead and like fix it with the same level of expediency and like priority and like actual good updates. Think about how often the devs have responded and actually made amazing fucking changes to the game. How many other dev teams are going to be willing to go ahead and put in that same exact amount of effort? And the answer is, I feel like not that many. It's going to be a little bit hard. I feel like it's going to be a little bit rough. They might not have the motivation to do it. You got to wait and see, because the amount of work that's been put in to make Wuthering Waves the game that it is right now in the present across every month since its launch has been insane. The exact issues that players have been pointing out directly addressed. The most meaningful things, the most meaningful additions prioritized. Things like the modifiers, things like the echo loadouts, all of that. So many things look bad in other games because of how Wuwa has evolved since its launch. 1.0 Wuwa is not what's making like these current games look bad. It's all of the compiled changes put together. You look at other games, what have their changes been? Their changes have been removing stuff from the game. They remove stuff from the game. They very rarely add things. The only thing Wuwa removed was their fucking animation from clearing tacit fields.
We saw how they managed to improve the game in this 1 year. They adapt to what player want, which of course affected by other games, but back to square one. A game won't get far if they never listen to what their actual players want for the game. So I'm pretty sure you got something to add, or if you disagree, comment down below and let us know why.
We turned this 10-minute video into a 40-minute react prior to editing, so I think we've already added plenty. Yeah, I would say overall, definitely with all of the new gacha games on the horizon, this is like a nice video to be able to sort of level set a lot of the existing player base for Wuthering Waves. Just in terms of, I feel like there might be a lot of concerns from people about what the future of Wuwa is going to be with all of these different competitors that are coming out. And the thing is that competition as a whole breeds innovation. While the Genshin devs have gone ahead and with a better game like Wuwa out there, they've only been making their game worse. Kuro Games is at least a company that has a track record of when there's something in their game that isn't as good, they make it better at the same level or at least exceeding the competition. If a new game does come out that does a system better than Wuwa, smoother than Wuwa, then what do you think the Kuro devs are going to do? Take the Genshin Impact response, stick a thumb up their ass, and then pretend it's not happening, and then go release their version of artifact loadouts like Genshin did, which are a complete fucking joke? Or do you think Kuro's gonna innovate even further using this other new game as inspiration and then only make Wuwa better? I think one is a lot more likely than the other. And so I view the Anantas, the NTEs, the Silver Palaces, the Rewinding Cadences, the Azure Permilias as only further motivation for existing Wuthering Waves players. Because what's the end result? Wuwa's probably gonna become a better game after those games release. And who isn't looking forward to that? That'll be my take. Awesome vid by now. Let me know what you all think. Peace.